That whole winning at home in overtime thing was so much fun last game. Why not do it again? What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where the Seattle Kraken win in overtime at home for a second game in a row, once again 3-2. And no, I promise I'm not just making it up. To be fair, if I was making it up, I'd probably be a little bit more original than just 3-2 scores in overtime 3 games in a row. But at least the Kraken come out on top of this one for the second time in a row. And this time, they didn't even have to blow a lead late in the third to get to overtime in the first place. It just kind of happened naturally. If that makes sense. And just like that final score, lineup-wise for the Kraken, there are no changes in this game from the last one. At least for the guys on the ice anyway. Off the ice, we did get Philip Grubauer back off of the injured reserve list, though again, he doesn't get the start, and Jones does keep the net. At least for now, though. It would be kind of fun to see what Grubauer can do behind this much improved defense from anything he saw last year. Of course, that having been said, when you have a goaltender playing as well as Jones has been, yeah, you really don't want to mess with it. Unfortunately, at least for the Kraken anyway, the similarities between last game and this one didn't stop once the puck dropped and continued through the first few minutes, where once again, it was Seattle on the board early. Though this time they did make fans wait almost a full 2 more minutes. And wouldn't you know it, but once again, it's that new look Beniers line with McCann on the other side of Eberle that puts the Kraken on the board early once again. And again, I swear that I'm not just reusing footage from the last game and being lazy, but it is McCann who puts the Kraken on the board early here with his 100th goal in his career in the 100th game that the Kraken play as a franchise. And not only that, but it's also number 19 scoring on the 19th. But anyway, the goal that McCann ends up scoring here, which is his 7th of the season, again 100th of the career, starts as they enter the offensive zone. Schultz gets it across to Eberle, who, as he's coming down the other side, fires off a shot, or maybe it was a pass net front, it's hard to say which, as Beniers was crashing the net. Beniers gets just a little bit of it, but it ends up going off of Peterson's pad and back out to the other side to a wide open McCann, who's been pretty much left alone. And McCann has a lot of empty net to shoot at, and he doesn't make any mistake hitting it to put the Kraken again in the lead early, 1-0. And so now with the Kraken in the lead early once again, the rest of the first period is honestly kind of uneventful. There's really not all that much else that happens in this first period outside of some things that really should have probably been called penalties, but the refs swallowed their whistles for the entire first, and those didn't come out until partway through the second. And even at that, the first penalty doesn't really even come until there's something so blatantly obvious that the refs have no choice but to call it. As Beniers and McCann get on a 2-on-1 breakaway, Beniers decides to take it to the net and try to shove it through the 5-hole of Peterson, but just isn't quite able to as he is shut down. McCann then goes for the rebound, but he is hooked, and then the hook is just held for the longest period of time until McCann ends up going over the stick and onto the ice. And that's when the arm goes up and the Kraken do get the power play. But the refs, who at this point seemed like they just didn't want one team to have an odd man advantage, quickly, just about 30 seconds into that Kraken power play, call a hook on Schwartz. And I gotta be honest, this is one of the softer calls we've seen all season. Doesn't really matter though. Schwartz heads to the box, and it's 4-on-4 for the next minute and a half, which doesn't really go much of anywhere, and then the Kraken are able to kill off the 30 seconds of Kings power play. And so still, as we reach the middle of the second period, there's really not all that much going on. To be fair, the Kings probably did get the better of this second period over the Kraken, certainly as far as possession time is concerned and possession in the offensive zone, but it is probably the Kraken that get the 2 better chances, at least through the mid part of this second period. Burakovsky, who's right up in Doughty's face, forcing him to pass the puck in the first place, just kind of puts his stick out in the passing lane where he thinks Doughty might try to pass it, and sure enough, Doughty makes the pass, and it finds Burakovsky's stick to give him the 1-on-1 chance with Peterson, who does make a pretty nice save. It wouldn't be his last nice save of the game, and while he did give up some pretty nice looking rebounds that the Kraken just weren't able to find outside of the one McCann scored on early in the first, honestly, he did, I think, had a pretty good game and certainly made some big saves from the Kings and at least got them into overtime as the course of this game went along. Regardless, though, a couple minutes after this nice save on Burakovsky, who he would rob at least 1 or 2 more times as the rest of the game would go along, the Kraken do get another power play, and this time it actually sticks and they get to play the full 2 minutes of it. Of course, because I've said they got to play the full 2 minutes of it, it doesn't end up scoring, though that being said, they do get a number of very good scoring opportunities on it, the best of which comes off of the stick of Matty Beniers, who had a lot of empty net to look at, as Peterson had been drawn to the other side, making a save on, I think it was Sprong, and wasn't quite able to fully recover to get to the other side by the time Beniers got the shot off. But there was a defenseman blocking part of the net, and unfortunately, Beniers' shot, although it does get clear of that defenseman, goes off of the far post and out of the net. Beniers, although he does get on the board with the assist on the first goal, still a bit snake-bitten when it comes to finding the net himself. But now, with this Kraken power play over and them unable to put the puck in the net, it does lead to some more rather uneventful hockey, as both teams are playing very solid defensively and not allowing clean transitions through the neutral zone going either direction, forcing on both ends the teams to kind of chip it into the offensive end and then try to win puck battles along the boards, which did quite frequently lead to long stalls along the boards, only allowing the refs to come in and tell them to eventually break it up without having to blow the plays dead. However, in the last almost a minute of the second period, the Kings are able to get a good press in the offensive zone, keeping the Kraken pinned, who aren't able to get a change off. They just can't quite clear it out of the zone, and eventually Arvidsson from right next to the Kraken net makes a nice 180 spinning pass out to Deneau, who gets the shot off. And while the save is made, the rebound goes up into the air and over Jones, who has no idea where the puck went. And unfortunately, the first guy to find it is Deneau, getting his own rebound, whacking it out of the air and into the net to tie the game here late in the second. And we do go to the second intermission with it tied at 1. And I do think that it's worth mentioning here for Jones, who again continues to be spectacular for the Kraken in net. With this one, it is just kind of a fluky rebound that he's not able to find, and to be fair, straight up is not usually the first place a goaltender looks. And by the time he is able to figure out where it went, it's just a really nice hands-eye coordination play by Deneau, which, come to think of it, I guess kind of makes some sense that he would be able to do that, considering the Kings do have that stupid, ugly logo that looks like home plate, which, I mean, if it was a baseball team, it wouldn't be a terrible logo, but for a hockey team, either way, if you have a logo that's home plate, maybe your players can play baseball decently, and I guess Deneau was able to do that here. And so we head to the third, where, as I've just said, the score is now tied at 1, and again, both teams are making it very difficult to get through the neutral zone and get set up in the offensive end, and even when they each are able to get set up in the offensive end, there are not a lot of chances being given up in the middle of the ice out in front of the net. So whichever team is able to get that second goal could just end up winning this game 2-1. Fortunately for the Kraken, they get a chance to do that themselves with a very early power play within just the first few seconds of this third period. And yes, we know this is a Kraken power play that is on a bit of a cold streak since that hot start to the season that we'd like to see them figure out a way to get back to, but at least for now, they did create some good scoring chances on the power play that they actually got to play all the way through, so if nothing else, they should be able to use this power play to at least build some momentum and go from there to try to get that second goal. Plus, if absolutely nothing else, against a Kings team that has yet to get a shorthanded goal this season, it's not like the Kraken are going to give up the second goal in these first couple of minutes. Or at least, that's what you would have thought, as within the first few seconds of this power play, in fact, I think the Kraken actually won the face-off of it, which hasn't been a thing that they've done a whole lot of on power plays, or penalty kills for that matter, this season. Within the first few seconds of it, the Kings are able to start a breakout going the other way, or at least try to clear the puck anyways. Not really a breakout, they're on the kill. However, it does turn into a breakout as Dunn pinches up on Deneau, who has the puck, completely forgetting about the fact that he's the last line of defense. Deneau passes it out to Moore, who gets a completely free breakaway, and while Burakovsky is able to kind of catch up to him towards the end, Moore gets off the clean shot right up in front of Jones and beats him into the top corner to give the Kings their first shorthanded goal of the season and the 2-1 lead in the first 30 seconds, or I guess 35 seconds of this third period. And look, I know there's still pretty much 2 minutes left of this Kraken power play, and then pretty much 18 minutes of the third period left after that the Kraken can use to hopefully tie up this game if nothing else. However, as we've just said, this has been a very defensively played game where both teams have made it hard to create good scoring chances. And yeah, this could easily be a game where no scoring happens throughout the rest of this third period. Fortunately for the Kraken though, that doesn't end up being the case, as just 18 seconds later, as the Kraken get back into the offensive zone still on the power play, Matty Beniers wins a puck battle along the boards, gets it out to Bjorkstrand, who gets it quickly up to Schultz, and Schultz from up in the corner by the blue line gets the puck down all the way across the ice to the far faceoff dot where Sprong is waiting in his sweet spot, having learned how to score there from Ovechkin in his time in DC. And while he does wait a little bit to fire off the shot, he fires off a no-look shot straight through the 5-hole of Peterson and into the back of the net to tie this game at 2. Just again, 18 seconds after that shorthanded goal, the Kraken score on the power play. And so, just like that, in honestly pretty opposite fashion of what we had frequently last year, where the Kraken would give up a quick response goal in the third period after either tying the game or taking the lead, quickly ending our joy at that happening. This time, the Kraken have the quick response goal just seconds later, quickly ending our frustration at that shorthanded goal. And while sure, this power play now does end with the score still tied, honestly, it feels like the Kraken have that quick bounce back and can use that as a momentum builder, even if it isn't a lead-taking goal that the power play scores. But as far as momentum is concerned, well, neither team was really able to create any kind of lasting momentum at honestly any point in this game throughout the entire thing. The Kings do get the next, I guess, sustained-ish press in the Kraken end a few minutes later, though that doesn't go anywhere, and then the Kraken do create a couple of pretty good scoring chances. Schwartz is able to get a nice chip pass out to Burakovsky, who once again gets a one-on-one chance. And this time, Peterson, who's had a bit of an issue with his 5-hole and goals going through it this season, this time decides to, well, if they're just going to go for my 5-hole, goes for a 2-pad stack, closing up that 5-hole right away, or I guess putting it up in the air if you want to think about it that way. Either way, he makes another robbery save on Burakovsky with a one-on-one chance. And then a little bit later, once again, the Kraken back in the offensive zone have another good chance. And this time, once again, it's Beniers creating the play, getting a pass all the way across to a wide open McCann from pretty much the same spot that he scored early on in the first. And he has a good amount of empty net to shoot at, fires off the shot, and Peterson gets just a little bit of his stick to it, lunging back to the other side. It's enough of his stick that while the puck does get past him, it goes off of the post and out the other side to keep this game tied at 2. And then, as can often happen with a big save like this, especially in the third period in a close game, right back the other way, the Kings get a very good scoring chance of their own, but Jones comes up with a very good save of his own, getting his toe to it, and keeping this game still tied at 2 as we get into the back half of the third, which it has to be said, once we got into the back half of the third, it seemed like both teams were pretty content with just not giving up any mistakes or good scoring chances and letting this game get to overtime. And without really any more good scoring chances, although the Kraken did have a decent press in the last couple of minutes where they get some shots off, but nothing gets past Peterson. Outside of, I guess, one that did go off of his glove, but ends up going over the net, so he still technically makes the save, even if he probably would have liked to catch that rather than let it squirt out of his glove. Either way, we end up getting to overtime once again with this game tied at 2. And in that 3-on-3 overtime that once again, the Kraken spent a good amount of time, it sounds like, in those 3 off days that they had between these last 2 consecutive games, practicing 3-on-3 overtime as it had not been going well for them up to that point. Well, once again, it seems like it paid off as the Kraken do a pretty good job of playing defensively, where honestly the Kings had the vast majority of the possession time in this overtime. But the Kings take shots from the outside that either Jones is able to save or send rebounds out for his guys to get possession of. And while Burakovsky does get the first shot off for the Kraken that ends up getting blocked off of a shin before it can get to the goal, eventually the Kraken get the puck back, and once again, it's some careless play along the boards by the Kings that allows Schultz to get a pass out to Eberle with the Kings defense crashing. That leads to a 2-on-1. It's Eberle and Tanev on the other side, 2-on-1 down the ice, and Eberle, looking at Tanev the whole way, fires off the shot and buries it to give the Kraken the 3-2 win and their second consecutive home overtime win, twice now in 3 days. Tanev, Eberle, both with their sticks in the air, and the whole team off the bench to greet them and celebrate another exciting win. And it is also worth mentioning for Eberle, this was a very nice shot, especially considering he did it no look, as he puts it over Peterson's glove, top corner and in. with not a lot of extra room to spare between that glove and the bar. But it doesn't matter, there's no mistaking that it pops the net, and unlike the one that ended the overtime in the previous game, there was no doubt about this one, no delay whatsoever in the reaction from the crowd. Just excitement, screaming and yelling, and let's go Kraken with that goal song playing. Oh, and yes, in the spirit of the consistency we've already talked about, or similarities between the last game and this one, where, again, both are 3-2 wins for the Kraken at home in overtime. Both have McCann scoring in the first 5 minutes of the game. Both also end with the combination of Schultz and Eberle finishing it in OT. Just this time the roles are flipped. Last time it was Eberle passing it to Schultz. This time it's Schultz to Eberle for the game winner. And so now that practice for the Kraken in 3-on-3 overtime in those 3 days off has paid off with back-to-back OT wins, which amounts to 2 points in the standings, the question is, what do the Kraken practice in these next 3 days? I would kind of have to hope that it's the power play. I mean, they do have their own film that they can watch from the start of the season where that power play looked dangerous every time out, even when it didn't score and was scoring pretty consistently. So going back and figuring out what was working there would probably serve them well going forward. Either way, for now, it's just an exciting homestand that the Kraken are able to finish off here with these 2 back-to-back overtime wins. And at the very least, even with those last 2, or the first 2 overtimes being somewhat frustrating how it got there, it is now 5 points in the last 3 games for the Kraken. I mean, I guess it doesn't quite finish the road trip, as the Kraken still do have one more home game to close out the road trip after, again, another 3-day break on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, against the San Jose Sharks. But again, before we get there, we still have 3 stars for the Kraken to hand out in this game. And while there are, as there usually are with wins, any number of guys we could give them to, like Jones, who once again was fantastic in net for the Kraken, or Schultz, who had a good game, or Cale Fleury, who's been playing pretty well as well for the Kraken, all 3 stars in this game for me are coming from the same forward line, which pretty much gives away who the 3 are. The first star is going to be Jared McCann. Once again, his 100th career goal in the Kraken's 100th game as a franchise. Not the 100th game that McCann's played or the 100th goal he scored with the Kraken, both of which would be pretty fantastic if that was true at this point. But still, a great game for McCann, has the goal and a couple of other very good scoring opportunities that were set up by his line mates, one in particular that we'll get to with the 3rd star, but with the 2nd star, also with an assist on that first goal. Jordan Eberle had a great night, obviously the game winner, which is the big highlight for him, and continues to have great game after great game. Of course, the 3rd star then going to Matty Beniers, who was all over the ice in this one. Not only has the assist that, for being honest, was a bit of a lucky assist as he barely touched the puck with it rebounded off of Peterson out to McCann to score it. Still, he has been around the net and around scoring enough, or potential scoring for the Kraken, that he's certainly owed at least one somewhat fortunate assist that he gets here. And throughout the rest of the game, again, came up just shy of getting another assist, with McCann putting one off the post, and of course, just shy of himself getting a goal, putting one off the post on that power play in the 2nd. But honestly, even outside of scoring, Beniers has really, for a few games now, even in this scoring drought that he had up until now, been fantastic with the puck, and especially along the boards, even for a guy that's still a bit on the smaller end of where the Kraken would probably eventually like him to be. But at 20 years old, he is holding his own along the boards against tough teams like the Kings and some of the other ones that Kraken have played against recently. And then not only winning those puck battles, but actually creating good plays and scoring opportunities after doing so, which we saw him do when McCann put one off the post, and also saw him do on that power play goal that Sprong scored, as Beniers set that whole thing up, even though he, again, was the 4th player to touch the puck, and they don't give out tertiary or 3rd assists. And with all that considered, and especially considering that he's the center of a line that has been very dangerous for the Kraken in these last few games, I think he's going to start getting on the board a lot and a lot more frequently over these next few. Especially again with a team like the Sharks, who are in the Bedard hunt right now, coming up on the schedule. And then a couple games after them, the Ducks. So yeah, we could see some big games for Beniers here coming up. As for the Kraken, with the win, it's their 10th of the season, moving to 10-5-3 already on this young season. And just for comparison as to where that measured up from last year, well, last year they got their 10th win to send them to 10-15-3. So the Kraken are already 10 losses ahead of where they were last year, or I guess their record is 10 losses better than what it was last year. And this 10th win comes now on the 19th of November, where last year it came on the 14th of December. And if the Kraken are able to win this next game on the 23rd, it'll be a full month, almost month and a half earlier than their January 17th 11th win last season. But again, let's not get too ahead of ourselves. They still have to play that game, and although the Sharks are not having a great start to their season, it's still an NHL team and no game is easy. So let's just hope the Kraken can show up for that one and finish off this homestand that has been great with a spectacular end. Maybe not necessarily overtime. I mean, overtime's exciting and all, but I could do with just a good old-fashioned butt kicking in regulation. Knock on wood. Anyway, love to hear your thoughts in the comment section about this game, who your 3 stars have been, how you've been enjoying these home OT wins, if any of you were actually at either one of these games, and what it was like to be in the building for those. I know from firsthand experience it was pretty fun. Either way, if you made it to this point though, thank you for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below to help support the channel. And until next time, stay safe out there, be good to each other, God bless, and go Kraken!